That question might sound strange at first. Most of us spent years wishing for a moment of quiet, a break between problems, a real pause. And when that space finally appears, when the phone stops ringing, the demands ease, and life slows down, something unexpected happens. Instead of immediate relief, there's an uneasiness that's hard to explain, a sense of emptiness, a state of alert with no clear reason, as if your body is waiting for something to go wrong. If you lived under constant pressure for a long time, that actually makes sense. Years of managing crises, carrying emotional responsibility, being the one everyone leans on. Years when rest felt like a luxury and staying alert felt like survival. Silence, in that context, was never practiced. Calm was never trained. It arrives like a foreign language. We often assume that when problems end, peace should come automatically. But for many people, the real experience is very different. The absence of conflict can feel strange, almost threatening. The body stays on edge. The mind looks for something to fix. The heart doesn't quite know where to land. And a quiet question forms underneath it all. Is everything really okay? There's something deeper happening here. Human beings get used to carrying weight. Not because they enjoy suffering, but because they learn how to organize themselves around the load. Constant effort becomes identity. Exhaustion becomes proof of worth. When that weight disappears, what's left isn't just rest. There's space. And space brings up things that were buried under urgency and noise. It's interesting to notice that even in spiritual stories, silence isn't always comfortable. Jesus, for example, often withdrew to quiet places. He sought solitude, stillness, pauses, not as escape but as encounter, and yet many of us struggle to do something that simple, to stop, to stay, to listen. Silence exposes us, and that can be unsettling. That may be why calm feels restless, not because it's wrong, but because it reveals. It reveals accumulated fatigue, delayed emotions, questions that never had time to surface. It reveals who we were when we were just surviving, and invites us to see who we are without the armor. Throughout this video, we're going to explore this idea gently, because often the issue isn't the calm itself, but what it brings to the surface. And understanding that can completely change how you relate to rest. If this kind of reflection connects with where you are right now, consider subscribing to the channel. This space exists to offer moments like this, deep, human, welcoming conversations for those who've spent too long in survival mode. There's something many people don't realize. The body learns. It learns routines, rhythms, emotional states. When someone spends years under constant stress, the body adapts to that as if it were the natural way to live. This isn't a conscious choice. It's a survival mechanism. Living in continuous alert means always being ready to react, solving problems fast, anticipating conflict, predicting risk. Over time, this stops feeling like effort and starts feeling normal. The heart beats a little faster. Breathing becomes shallow. The mind never fully shuts off, even at the end of the day. And all of this can continue even when there's no real external threat anymore. So when calm finally arrives, the body doesn't recognize it as safe. Instead of relaxing, it asks, "Why is everything so quiet?" It's like someone who lived for years in a noisy house and suddenly moves to a place that's almost too quiet. The silence isn't dangerous, but the body doesn't know that yet. Many people say that when they finally have time to rest, they can't. They lie down, but sleep won't come. They sit still, but feel restless. When there's no urgent task, anxiety shows up, not because something is wrong, but because their internal system was trained to function under pressure. That also explains why resting in peace can feel so hard. It's not ingratitude. It's not a lack of appreciation for life improving. It's conditioning. The body learned to associate constant movement with safety. Stopping feels risky. Silence feels careless. There's a spiritual layer here that doesn't get talked about much. Just like the body, the soul can also get used to restlessness. Constant agitation becomes familiar. Even when it's exhausting, it's known. Calm, on the other hand, requires trust. Trust that you can loosen control for a moment without everything falling apart. When Jesus said things like, "Your faith has healed you," there was a deep understanding of process. Healing not as instant magic, but as gradual restoration. Learning to live without pain after a long time hurting takes time. Learning to live in peace after years on high alert does too. Peace, in that sense, isn't a button you press. It's something you learn, and learning involves discomfort, mistakes, moments when you try to rest and feel worse, not better. That doesn't mean calm is the problem. It just means your body is still relearning the way. Many people blame themselves for this. They think they should be happy, relaxed, calm, but the body doesn't work on obligation. It responds to the story it lived. If your story was shaped by tension, pressure, and excessive responsibility, it's natural for rest to feel uncomfortable at first. There's also a common confusion between rest and danger. For those who grew up or lived in unstable environments, relaxing often meant lowering their guard, and lowering their guard had consequences. The body doesn't forget that easily. It tries to protect you, even when it's no longer necessary. This is important. Your body isn't against you. It's trying to keep you safe using the tools it learned. The problem is that those tools were shaped in a different context. Now they need to be updated with gentleness, not force. Spiritually, this helps us understand that peace isn't the absence of movement, but the presence of trust. Jesus never rushed people through their process. He respected timing. He walked with them, taught step by step. Restoration came at a pace each person could handle. And maybe this is the key to this part of the conversation. The discomfort you feel in calm isn't a flaw. It's a sign of transition. Something inside you is shifting modes, leaving survival and trying to learn a different way of being. But this doesn't happen only in the body. There's something even deeper involved. When constant alertness drops, it's not just physical sensations that change. Your sense of identity shifts too, because for many people, living in chaos wasn't just a phase. It became who they were. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about next. There's a certain type of person who almost never had the option to fall apart. From an early age, they had to be strong, take on responsibilities too soon, handle situations that shouldn't have been theirs, be emotional support for others, even when they were exhausted themselves. For these people, chaos wasn't an occasional event. It was the environment where they learned how to exist. Over time, this posture stops being just a response to circumstances and turns into identity. You don't just face problems, you're the one who handles things. You don't just endure, you're the strong one. And this gets reinforced by everyone around you. People rely on you, expect things from you. Without noticing, chaos becomes the stage where you know how to perform. So when that stage changes, something unsettling happens. When crises fade, urgencies stop, and no one needs saving in that moment, a quiet emptiness appears, not pure relief, but disorientation. A question starts echoing inside. Who am I when there's nothing to fix? That emptiness doesn't mean a lack of value. It means you confused function with identity. For a long time, your worth was measured by how much you carried, how much you solved, how much you sacrificed. Suffering became proof of importance. Rest, on the other hand, feels like a threat to your story. There's a strong internal resistance when calm shows up, because it dismantles characters that were created to survive. The responsible one, the tireless one, the one who never stops. Those characters were useful. They got you here, but they aren't everything you are. Philosophically, People tend to define themselves by the role they play. When that role disappears, an existential fear surfaces. If I'm not fighting, am I still needed? If I'm not carrying weight, do I still matter? These questions are often unconscious, but they shape how you react to rest. That's why calm can feel like betrayal. Betrayal of your own journey. As if resting disrespects everything you went through, as if setting the burden down denies the scars. There's almost a silent pact with suffering. I endured so much, I can't just stop now. Spiritually, this shows up clearly in resistance to Jesus' invitation when he tells the weary and burdened to come and rest. It sounds simple, but it confronts something deep. Rest requires letting go, and letting go is scary, because the burden, as heavy as it is, became familiar. Many people would rather keep carrying known weight than risk unfamiliar lightness. The burden hurts, but it also gives meaning. It organizes life. It defines who you are. Letting it go takes courage. It requires trusting that you won't disappear without it. There's also a quiet belief that if you stop, everything will collapse, that your constant vigilance is what holds the world together. It's exhausting, but powerful. It makes rest feel irresponsible instead of caring. Jesus didn't treat rest as weakness. He treated it as a human need, and even so, many resisted, because accepting rest means admitting you're not the savior of everything. It means accepting limits, being cared for, not just caring. When chaos becomes identity, calm threatens that structure. It asks, who are you beyond what you do? Who are you when you don't have to be strong all the time? These questions don't have quick answers, and maybe that's why the mind prefers noise. But there's something even deeper hidden in this discomfort, something beyond habit, identity, or body, a quiet feeling that often accompanies rest, guilt. And that's what we're going to talk about next. When someone finally stops, something unexpected happens. It's not just the silence that's uncomfortable. There's a strange feeling of doing something wrong, as if rest were an invisible violation, as if somewhere there were a rule saying you shouldn't be there. Still, quiet, not producing, not fixing, not sacrificing. This guilt is rarely clear or rational. It doesn't come with a neat, logical thought. It shows up as a tightness in the chest, a nameless unease, an urge to get up and do something, even without knowing what. Rest becomes discomfort because it activates an old association. Stopping is dangerous. For those who lived on high alert, rest was never neutral. At some point in their story, lowering their guard meant exposure, loss of control, the possibility that something bad would happen. The body learned that, and so did the mind. So when calm arrives, there's an unconscious fear that it's just the pause before another fall. There's also the idea of deserving rest. Many people only allow themselves to stop when they feel they've done enough, when everything is handled, when they've once again proven they're worthy of a break. The problem is, enough never arrives. There's always more to do, more people to help, more risks to anticipate. Spiritually, this connects to the human difficulty of accepting grace without effort. Receiving rest as a gift rather than a reward challenges everything we learned living under pressure. Jesus offered rest not as a prize for good behavior, but as a gift to the weary. And that's uncomfortable because it removes control from our hands. Accepting rest without guilt requires acknowledging limits, admitting you don't have to pay for the right to stop. But for someone who built their whole life around effort, that can feel almost immoral, as if resting were laziness, as if stopping were abandonment. Many people carry a quiet belief that if something good comes easily, something must be wrong, that peace has to be earned through suffering, that relaxing too much invites trouble. This belief isn't true, but it's powerful. It turns rest into tension instead of relief. The tone here needs to be gentle, because this guilt isn't a character flaw. It's the result of a hard history. It's the echo of years spent in survival mode, and no one leaves survival without scars. Maybe for the first time, it's worth considering that calm isn't a mistake. That silence isn't a warning sign, but an invitation, a new, unfamiliar territory that hasn't been explored yet. And every unfamiliar place brings insecurity, which leads to an important shift in perspective. Maybe calm isn't the problem. Maybe it's simply a place you were never taught how to live, and like any new place, it feels unsettling at first. That's the territory we're stepping into now. Calm is often understood as the absence of pain, problems, or movement, but in practice, it's something else. Calm is the presence of space, inner space, emotional space, space to feel what was ignored while life demanded urgency. When the noise fades, silence doesn't arrive empty. It arrives full of stored emotions, postponed thoughts, old fatigue that was never fully felt. That's why calm can feel restless. It doesn't create discomfort, it reveals it. For those who spent their lives reacting, inner space feels unfamiliar. There are no clear instructions, no urgency directing each step, and without realizing it, people interpret that feeling as failure, as if they're doing something wrong by not knowing what to do with silence. But this restlessness isn't regression, it's transition. It's the body and mind crossing into a new territory, leaving a familiar place, even if painful, for a space that doesn't have maps yet. Calm doesn't demand performance. It doesn't ask for quick answers, and that can be disorienting for someone who defined themselves by action. Learning to live here is a process, not a natural talent. In the next part of our conversation, we'll talk about how to begin trusting this territory without forcing it, without rushing what needs time. Because learning to live in calm doesn't happen all at once. It happens gradually. There's a quiet expectation that trips many people up here, the idea that when calm arrives, you should relax immediately, as if fewer problems automatically bring peace to the body and mind. But it rarely works that way. Trusting peace is something you learn, and every learning process starts with discomfort. The first step is not forcing it. Forcing relaxation usually creates the opposite effect. When you pressure yourself to feel good, to rest properly, to enjoy the quiet, you create more tension. Calm doesn't respond to pressure, it responds to permission. Permission to feel discomfort without immediately trying to fix it. It's important to normalize what happens at the beginning. Short moments of pause may come with restlessness. A few minutes of silence may feel too long. The body wants to move. The mind looks for tasks. This doesn't mean you're failing. It simply means you're relearning. Trusting peace starts with small gestures. Not changing your whole life at once. Allowing brief intervals. A few minutes of breathing with no goal. A moment of rest without guilt. A short space where you don't have to prove anything to anyone, not even yourself. Listening to the body helps here, not to control it, but to understand it. If silence feels uncomfortable, respect that. If a few minutes are enough, stop there. Peace doesn't require heroics. It grows through consistency, not intensity. Spiritually, it's meaningful to notice how Jesus never rushed processes. He didn't demand immediate change. He walked with people at a pace they could sustain. Healing happened, but the journey was respected. Peace, in that sense, wasn't a magical event. It was an inner construction. Learning to trust peace means accepting that healing happens in layers, a little today, a little tomorrow, some easier days, others more restless. All of it belongs. Calm isn't a perfect state. It's a relationship you build with yourself. When you stop fighting the initial discomfort, something begins to shift. The body slowly learns there's no real danger. The mind releases control in brief moments, and those moments, small as they are, teach more than big decisions ever could. Maybe the most important thing to remember is that you don't need to become a different person to live in peace. You just need to stop living as if you're always at war, and that doesn't happen overnight, because in the end, calm isn't the end of the fight. For many, it's the beginning of something completely new. There's a quiet idea that needs to be gently dismantled, that if calm feels strange, something must be wrong with you. As if difficulty resting were a defect, as if discomfort in silence were weakness. It isn't. Nothing about you is broken. The unease that shows up when life slows down isn't regression, it's change. It's the body and mind leaving an old state and adjusting to something new. That takes courage, because it's often easier to keep fighting than to learn how to trust. Calm requires a different kind of strength, not the strength to endure everything, but the strength to not react constantly, to not fill every space, to not run back to familiar noise. Resting, for someone who lived on alert for years, is a quiet act of courage. There's also a deep element of faith here, not exaggerated or disconnected from reality, but simple trust. Trust that you can stop for a moment and the world won't collapse. Trust that you don't have to stay vigilant all the time to deserve peace. There's a powerful symbolic scene where Jesus sleeps while a storm rages around him. Chaos is present, but inner peace remains. That image isn't about denying reality. It's about a peace that doesn't depend on external circumstances, a peace that doesn't require constant effort to defend. Maybe that's what calm is inviting you to learn. Not that struggle is gone forever, but that you don't have to live as if you're always at war, that it's possible to rest even knowing life remains unpredictable. Calm doesn't erase your story. It doesn't invalidate what you endured. On the contrary, it honors your story by saying you don't have to live only to survive anymore. You can learn to live simply to exist. So maybe the question isn't, why does calm bother me, but something deeper. What inside me still doesn't believe it's allowed to rest. If this reflection touched something in you, I'd really like to hear from you. Have you ever felt this uneasiness when everything went quiet? Share your experience in the comments. Sometimes putting it into words is already an important step. If you know someone who lives under constant pressure, someone who never stops, maybe this video could be a gentle invitation for them too. Share it with someone who needs to hear this today. And if you haven't subscribed yet, stay with us. This is a space created for conversations like this, deep, human and honest, for those who spent too long carrying weight alone.